السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين وتابعيهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, today it is Sunday the 15th of al-Muharram 1446, and this matches the 21st of July 2024. This is our session number 32, going through فتح رب البرية بتلخيص الحموية, the summary of الحموية by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and the تلخيص, the summary, is by Shaykh al-Uthaimeen rahimahullah ta'ala. As I said, this is session number 32. We are getting towards the end of the book, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, the success and the facilitation, and to make us from those who listen to a statement and follow the best of it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أن يعلمنا ما ينفعنا, to teach us what benefits us. وأن ينفعنا بما علمنا, and to benefit us by what he taught us. وأن يزيدنا علما, and to increase us in knowledge. وأن يرزقنا علما ينفعنا, and to grant us knowledge that is beneficial to us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sincerity and for al-qabul, acceptance. So we are at الباب الثالث والعشرون, chapter 23, في أقسام المنحرفين عن الاستقامة. في أقسام المنحرفين عن الاستقامة في باب الإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر. Regarding the categories, أقسام المنحرفين, those who deviated, عن الاستقامة, from uprightness, from steadfastness, في باب الإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر, regarding the iman, in the topic of al-iman billah, believing in Allah and the last day. So he starts by saying طريقة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصحابه أو أصحابه, the way of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and his companions, the way of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and his companions. وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان على الصراط المستقيم علما وعملا, and also those who followed them in a good way. They followed them with ihsan. They followed their footsteps with goodness and perfection. It is على الصراط المستقيم, the way of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, the companions, and those who followed them in the right way, in a good way. Their way is upon على, it is upon الصراط المستقيم, it is upon the straight path. علما, in terms of the knowledge, وعملا, in terms of action. So in terms of knowing and in terms of applying, their way is steadfast, upon the right path. يعرف ذلك من تتبعها بعلم وعدل, the one who pursues it, تتبع, pursues it, follows it, يعني the way of the Prophet ﷺ, he would pursue his way, and the companions and the tabi'een, those who followed them with good. The one who pursues it with knowledge and justice, he will know that. That meaning that they were on the straight path. So if you pursue their way, you will find and you will recognize that they were truly upon the straight path. فقد حققوا الإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر, for they have established, surely established, حققوا, they actualized, believing in Allah and the last day. وأقروا بأن ذلك حق على حقيقته, they affirmed, أقروا, that is true believing in Allah and the last day, that is true على حقيقته, according to what it really is, according to its reality. Right? So they affirmed it to be true according to the way it is, the truthful way that that way is. وهم في عملهم مخلصون لله. They, in their actions, they are sincere to Allah. متبعون لشرعه. They are following His legislation. فلا شرك. So there is no association of partners with Allah. ولا ابتداع. There is no innovation. There is no heresies in the religion, bringing up new things in the deen. ولا تحريف. There is no distortion for the religion, twisting it and distorting it. ولا تكذيب. And there is no rejection to any of the legislation. Nothing that came from Allah they would reject. That was the way of the Prophet ﷺ, his companions, and those who followed them in a good way. وَأَمَّا الْمُنْحَرِفُونَ, which is the subject of the chapter, as for the ones who deviated, the deviants, those who انحرف, it means to, be swayed from the way, to deviate from the path, to drift away from what is right. انحرف. عن طريقتهم, from their way. فهم ثلاث طوائف. Then there are three groups. أهل طوائف, the plural of طائفة. طائفة is a group of people. Could be even one, but one and more. طائفة. أهل التخيل, the people of imagination. وأهل التأويل, the people of interpretation, or I should say false interpretation. وأهل التجهيل, the people of ignorance. Right? So I will use imagination and tajheel, but let's go back to the words. تخيل, خيال is an image. تخيل is to make something to be an image, to be imaginary. And we will see how they make the reports that came from the prophets in the Quran, they make them imaginary, that they're not really real. They're not talking about real thing. It's meant to do takhyil for you, to make you imagine. Ta'wil is to, this is, we used it so many times, ta'wil. So he will elaborate on the meaning of ta'wil later on. But here they give interpretation for something that it is a false interpretation. أهل التجهيل, جهل يجهل جهلا. جهل is to not know, to be ignorant. جهل, the verb. يجهل, the present tense. جهلا is ignorance. This one now, not جهلا, it is تجهيل. Right? جهل, to make someone ignorant or to attribute ignorance to someone. جهله, right? When you don't teach someone, you make him ignorant. Huh? Or you ascribe him to ignorance. You say he's ignorant. هذا جهل. يجهل with a shadda on the ha. جهل. The first one is جهل. جا فتحة he كسرة on the ha. جهل. This one is جهل. جيم with a فتحة, ha with a shadda and فتحة. جهل. تجهيل. تجهيل is the, as I said, to make someone ignorant or to attribute someone to ignorance. And as we will see, they attribute the companions to the tabi'een, to the right way. They attribute to them ignorance. Right? تجهيل. But I don't know if there is a word in English. I thought about it, but we don't want to use words that don't make. So we are using أهل التخيل, but it is really the people who make you imagine things, who make things imaginary, right? Ta'wil, those who interpret falsely. Tajheel, those who make an attribute ignorance, right? Tajheel. Inshallah, the terms will become clear when we go through them. فأما أهل التخيل, as for the people who call for things to be actually imaginary, the beliefs regarding, we're talking about Allah and the last day. So they make those things to be what? Imaginary things, not real. Right? فهم الفلاسفة والباطنية. Then they are the philosophers and al-batiniyah. This word has come before, but anyways, batin and zahir, right? So you have batan, ba, ta, nun. This is the stomach and the inner side of something. Zahir, this is the back and the outer part of something, right? So we have zahir, zahru thawb, zahir, this is the top, and button of the thawb is the inside of the thawb, button, right? Zahir, button, right? And then they use this word batin, the inside, the internal, intrinsic, and al-zahir, the opposite of it, is the outside, extrinsic, right? The outer part, right? And we know the names of Allah, huwa al-zahiru wal-batin, right? So here, batin, because in their understanding of the words and the Sharia and the law, those people are of internal interpretation, internal secrets. Everything is a secret. So they don't take the zahir, which is the apparent meaning. They interpret those things, the words, to be something always secretive and having an internal meaning that nobody knows except them and their groups, right? That's what the word batiniyah now. It's a reference to batin, like the famous madhab, the madhab al-Zahiriyyah. It's a reference to the word zahir, which is taking the apparent meaning of the ruling or the text, right? And then Zahiriyah, this is basically what it is. And now this is Batiniyah, right? So they take not the apparent meaning. There is always an internal, secretive, mysterious type of a meaning that they have. And of course, all kinds of, this one has this meaning, the other one has the other meaning, and like that. وَمَنْ سَلَكَ سَبِيلَهُمْ. So أهل التخيل, the people who make the believing in Allah and the last day imaginary things, they are the philosophers, and those batiniyah, right? وَمَنْ سَلَكَ سَبِيلَهُمْ مِنَ الْمُتَكَلِّمِينَ وَغَيْرُهُم. Those who have trodden their path, those who walked on the same path, سَلَكَ سَبِيلَهُم, of the mutakallimin. Mutakallimin, this is a reference to ilm al-kalam. And now kalam means speaking and speech. But this turned to be a science on its own, the science of rhetorical speech that is based on philosophy, right? Is based on philosophy. So those, they call them mutakallimin. But this is a terminology now, because You are mutakallim and I am mutakallim and he is mutakallim. Anyone who speaks, he is a speaker. But they are saying speaker here, rhetorical speech. The speech that is based upon philosophy, right? متكلمين. To differentiate them from the philosophers, يعني, although they are يعني, using part of their stuff, but متكلمين, وغيرهم, and other than them. وحقيقة مذهبهم, the reality of their madhab, their way, their school of thought, أن ما جاءت به الأنبياء مما يتعلق بالإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر أمثال, that what has come, that what the prophets have come with, which relates to believing in Allah and the last day, أمثال وتخيلات, what the prophets came with regarding believing in Allah and the last day, أمثال, they're just parables, examples that are set up. وتخيلات, تخيلات, things that are imaginary, made imaginary. So they make you imagine something that is not real. لا حقيقة لها في الواقع. It has no reality in يعني in what's going on. الواقع is what takes place. This universe where things happen, right? So has no real place in the world. وإنما المقصود بها انتفاع العامة وجمهور الناس. Rather, what is intended by them is just the benefit of the people, the general folks, العامة. وجمهور الناس, انتفاع العامة وجمهور الناس. وإنما المقصود بها, what is intended by what? By what the prophets have come with regarding Allah and the Akhirah. What is intended by it is the benefiting, intifa', benefiting that the amma, the general folks, وجمهور الناس, the common folks, the public, يعني the general public, for them to benefit by that. لأن الناس, how is that? لأن الناس إذا قيل لهم, according to these people, أهل التخيل, because the people, if they were told, إن لكم ربا, surely you have a Lord who is عظيما, a great Lord, قادرا, who is all able, رحيما, all merciful, قاهرا, he is a compeller, all compelling, وإن أمامكم يوما عظيما تبعثون فيه, and in front of you, before you, in front of you, يعني in the future, there will be a great day in which you will be resurrected. وتجازون بأعمالكم, you will be rewarded according to your actions. ونحو ذلك, and the likes of that, if they were told this, استقاموا على الطريقة المطلوبة منهم, they will become steadfast, استقاموا, according to the way, طريقة, that is required, مطلوبة منهم, from them. وإن كان هذا لا حقيقة له على زعم هؤلاء, although this has no reality according to the claim of those people. ثم إن هؤلاء على قسمين, then those people, they are of two categories, غلاة, extremists, وغير غلاة, and those who are not extreme and not extreme. This is now relative extremism. Otherwise, all of them are extreme, right? They have gone far away. They exaggerated. But then you will see how some of them are worse than the others. That's why he's calling some of them ghulat and the other are not ghulat, although everybody is ghulat here. فأما الغلاة فيزعمون, as for the extreme ones, then they claim أن الأنبياء لا يعلمون حقائق هذه الأمور. That the prophets, they don't know the realities of these affairs, of these matters. إيمان بالله واليوم الآخر. وأن من المتفلسفة الإلهية, and that amongst المتفلسفة, philosophizers. You have someone who's follows philosophy and learns, and there is someone who philosophizes. Right? So philosophizers, متفلسفة الإلهية, philosophizing regarding the divinity of Allah. Divine philosophers, philosophizers about Allah. So some of those people who philosophize about Allah, وَمَنْ يَزْعُمُونَهُمْ أَوْلِيَاء, and from those whom they claim them to be awliya, allies and patrons of Allah, amongst them مَنْ يَعْلَمُ هَذِهِ الْحَقَائِقِ, are those who actually know these realities. So the prophets don't know, and those philosophizers and patrons or awliya, according to them, they know the realities. فزعموا أن من الفلاسفة من هو أعلم بالله واليوم الآخر من النبيين الذين هم أعلم الناس بذلك. So they claimed that amongst the philosophers are those who are more knowledgeable of Allah and the last day than the prophets. The prophets who are actually the most knowledgeable of the people of that. But they have their philosophers and their awliya. They know more about Allah and the last day than the prophets. وَأَمَّا غَيْرُ الْغُلَاةِ, as for those who are not that extreme, they're not extreme, فَيَزْعُمُونَ أَنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاء يَعْلَمُونَ حَقَائِقَ هَذِهِ الْأُمُورِ. They claim that the prophets, they actually do know the realities of these affairs. وَلَكِنَّهُمْ ذكروا للناس أمورا تخيلية لا تطابق الحق. But they mentioned to the people أمورا, matters, تخيلية, matters that make you imagine, أمورا متخيلة, يعني imaginary things, لا تطابق الحق, does not match reality. Who is doing this according to them? The prophets. They're telling people things that are imaginary, do not match the truth. Why? Why are they doing that? لتقوم مصلحة الناس, so that the benefit and the interest of the people will be established. يعني فزعموا أن مصلحة العباد لا تقوم إلا بهذه الطريقة. They claim that the benefit of the people cannot be established except through this way, التي تتضمن كذب الأنبياء في أعظم الأمور وأهمها, which includes the lying of the prophets regarding the greatest of the affairs and the most important of them. فالطائفة الأولى, the first group, حكمت على الرسل بالجهل. They judged the messengers to be ignorant. والطائفة الثانية, the second group, حكمت عليهم بالخيانة والكذب. They judged them to be خيانة. They charged them with betrayal. Right? They judged them that they are just betraying the people. خيانة. والكذب, and lying. وهذا هو قول أهل التخيل. This is the position of the people of imagination فيما يتعلق بالإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر, regarding what relates to believing in Allah and the last day. That's in terms of belief. أما في الأعمال, as for in terms of actions and deeds, فمنهم من يجعلها حقائق يؤمر بها كل أحد. Amongst them are those who actually make those actions real, realities that everyone is commanded to do them, to apply them. Actions يعني صلاة, zakah, صيام. Some of them say, yeah, everybody should do that. ومنهم من يجعلها تخيلات ورموزا. And amongst them are those who make them imaginary things and symbols. رموز, symbols. يؤمر بها العامة دون الخاصة. That the general folks are the ones who are commanded with those commands, but not the special people, the special group within them. فيؤولون الصلاة بمعرفة أسرارهم. They interpret the prayer, salah, they interpret that to mean knowing their secrets. والصيام, they interpret fasting بكتمانها, that they should hide and conceal their secrets. والحج, pilgrimage, بالسفر إلى شيوخهم, they interpret that to mean traveling to their sheikhs. ونحو ذلك, and the likes of that. وهؤلاء هم الملاحدة. These are the ملاحدة. And the word ilhad has come before, and it means in origin to deviate, but it's commonly used for those who truly atheistic and don't really believe in Allah. من الإسماعيلية والباطنية ونحوهم. Of the Ismailiyah, the sect that still to this day exists. والباطنية, those who claim things have secrets. And Ismailiyah is part of them too. ونحوهم, and their likes. وفساد قول هؤلاء, the corruption of the position of those people, معلوم بضرورة الحس. It is known by the necessity of the senses, the physical senses. والعقل, and the intellect. والشرع, and the legislation. فإننا نشاهد من الآيات الدالة على وجود الله وكمال صفاته ما لا يمكن حصره. For we witness from the signs indicating the existence of Allah and the perfection of His attributes, we are witnessing of the signs that ما لا يمكن حصره, that which we cannot list and enumerate. Right? And he mentions a line of poetry which says, وفي كل شيء له آية تدل على أنه واحد. And in everything he has, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has a sign, ayah, proving, تدل, proving and indicating على أنه واحد, that he is just one, subhanahu wa ta'ala. فإن هذه الحوادث المنتظمة, for those incidents taking place that are منتظمة, organized and systematic, لا يمكن أن تحدث إلا بمدبر. They cannot happen, those things that do take place, they cannot happen except through a mudabbir, a manager, hakim, who's all wise, qadir, all able, ala kulli shay. He's able to do everything. والإيمان باليوم الآخر, and believing in the last day, دلت عليه جميع الشرائع. All the legislations prove that. واقتضته حكمة الله البالغة, and Allah's great wisdom, utmost wisdom, necessitated that there has to be a last day. ولا ينكره إلا مكابر أو مجنون. No one denies it except a mukabir. The mukabir is someone who's so stubborn, right? And he is arguing about something that is so clear, so crystal clear. Right? إلا مكابر أو مجنون أو مجنون. Someone who is stubbornly arrogant, مكابر. يعني you see the sun in front of you and he is saying, no, that's not the sun, that's the moon. Or right? And the famous, I'm sure, the English speaking, you might have heard that عنز ولو طارت. Right? So the two people are looking at something. One of them is telling him this is a goat. It's far away. The other one says, what goat? What are you talking about? This is a bird. No, goat, bird, goat, bird. So then it flew. Right? So, you see, I told you it's a bird, not a goat. He says it's a goat even if it flies. Right? The famous, a famous proverb that they use. For those mukaber, that's the meaning of mukaber. He sees it flying and he still says it's a goat. Right? So either a mukaber, someone who is arrogantly stubborn, right, and arguing about it, or majnoon, or someone who is insane. وأهل التخييل لا يحتاجون في الرد عليهم إلى شيء كثير. Those people of imagination, they don't need to refute them to something that is big. You don't need too much to refute them. لأن نفور الناس عنهم معلوم ظاهر. نفور, the rejection, the resentment of the people for them, towards them, is معلوم, is well known, and is ظاهر, it's apparent. So someone comes and he says, oh, there's nothing real about Allah, the last day, this is all imaginary, no reality behind it. Oh, but the prophets, either he says, the prophets, they really don't know. What? The prophets don't know? Who knows? Our Sheikh Fulan and Sheikh Faltan. Like they say, one of them said, we indulged ourselves in a sea that the prophets, they only stood at the shore. خضنا بحرا وقف الأنبياء بساحله, or something like this. Right? We got involved, we got indulged, we went through deep into a sea. The prophets only stood at the shore. And they know more than the prophets. Right? So this is obvious obvious مكابرة, obvious arrogant, stubborn behavior. And the others, they say, no, actually, all of this is unreal. But the prophets, they were just saying this so the people will listen and follow and will be good. Otherwise, they will not they will not donate. They will not look after the poor. They will not respect their parents. They will not like that. So the prophets had to, fake it up. The whole story is fake. There is no iman billah or the last day. All of it is fake. And as he said, some of them are more extreme than the others, but the whole thing doesn't need too much to be refuted. That's what he's saying. وأما أهل التأويل, as for the people of false interpretation, فهم, then they are المتكلمون. So we explained, came a few times, but we reminded you again that these are now people who used the philosophy, the Greek philosophy. They included it into talking about Allah, the divinity, right? The divine, subhanahu wa ta'ala, within Islam, supposedly. But they are borrowing ideologies from the philosophers, the Greek philosophy. So those are al-mutakallimun, the speakers based on philosophy, min al-Jahmiyyah, of the Jahmites, the followers of al-Jahm ibn Safwan, and we spoke about that before. والمعتزلة, a group called al-Mu'tazila, Mu'tazilites, also we spoke about them before, وأتباعهم and their followers. وحقيقة مذهبهم, the reality of their methodology, their thought, their beliefs, أن ما جاء به النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that what the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم has come with, من نصوص الصفات, of the texts of the attributes of Allah. Their position is that they are مجاز, لم يقصد به ظاهره. So whatever the Prophet ﷺ came with of the texts, Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Hadith, talking about Allah and His attributes, صفات, it's actually majaz, metaphor, allegory, لم يقصد به ظاهره. The apparent meaning is not intended. وإنما المقصود به معان تخالفه. But rather what is intended by it are meanings that oppose it. Oppose what? Oppose the apparent meaning. Right? What is intended by those texts of the attributes of Allah, what is intended by those texts are meanings that oppose actually the apparent meaning. يعلمها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم knows them, knows the meanings, لكنه تركها للناس يستنتجونها بعقولهم. But he left it for the people so that they will derive them. يستنتجونها. يستنتج is to reach a natija. Natija is a result, a conclusion. So he left it for the people to deduce them and derive them on their own. بعقولهم, through their intellects. ثم يحاولون صرف ظواهر النصوص إليها. Then they will try to divert the apparent meanings of the texts to those meanings that are metaphorical, that they derived and deduced on their own through their intellects. وغرضه بذلك, يعني what did Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم intend by just leaving them like this according to those deviants? يعني غرضه بذلك, his purpose behind that, his objective behind that, غرض, objective, purpose, his objective behind that, امتحان عقولهم, right? To test their intellects. That's what يعني Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he is sent by Allah, so Allah wants them to do this then. وكثرة الثواب, غرضه بذلك امتحان عقولهم وكثرة الثواب, and to reward them abundantly بما يعانونه من محاولة صرف الكلام عن ظاهره, by what they are suffering, يعانونه, by this, what they are enduring of trying to divert the speech from its apparent meaning. وتنزيله على شواذ اللغة وغرائب الكلام, and having those words, this speech, speaking about Allah in the Quran and the Sunnah, تنزيله, applying it, having it, having the words being giving the meaning, تنزيل, نزل كذا على كذا, right? So using those words to mean this. تنزيله على ماذا؟ على يعني applying it to شواذ اللغة, the odd words in the language. Something, because the words in the language have يعني known meanings, and there are sometimes one rare meaning, maybe not used even, they say, obsolete, like they say. Right? وغرائب اللغة وغرائب الكلام, and the strange speech. Strange speech. Like I mentioned before, when الرحمن على العرش استوى, the ever merciful rose over the throne, they will say استوى in the language has 14 different meanings. What do you mean by which one of the 14? Right? But if you give this ayah to an Arab, right away he says, okay, it means the ever merciful rose over the throne, who ascended the throne. And that's what it means. But they have to go like this. And they come up with the meaning of istawa. Oh, it means to control and overpower and so on and so forth. وغرائب الكلام, and strange words, right? So as the hadith, Allah places his foot in it, in the fire, right? So they will bring, oh, that means qadamah, qudmah. They will say, oh, it means a group of people, to be put in there, right? So, this is how they use weird words or weird language, weird meanings to play with them. Or like when that Jewish person came to Rasulullah sallallahu and he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places the heavens on one finger and the earths on one finger and like that. So Rasulullah sallallahu laughed at the end. So they said he was laughing, ridiculing this person, laughing at him. And in the hadith it says, فضحك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تصديقا لقول الله, affirming what this Jewish person, Jewish scholar said. But they use it to mean, no, he was laughing at him, and so on and so forth. Like the hadith of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming down to the earth in the last third of the night, saying, who asks of me, I will give him. Who supplicates me, I will respond to him. Who asks forgiveness, and I will forgive him. They will say, oh, that's actually an angel that comes down. And they found a narration that says this. It's a weak narration, that an angel comes who says that. Okay, the angel says, who asks me and I will give him. Who asks my forgiveness, the angel says, who asks for my forgiveness and I will forgive him. Can this be right, on top of the fact that narration is not authentic? They leave what is agreed upon and they go to narrations here and there to give it other meanings. Right? So they will say, oh, all of these, once again, the attributes that are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, not the apparent meaning is intended. All of that is metaphor and allegory. The Prophet ﷺ knows those meanings, but he left them for the people to derive them on their own with their intellects to reach a conclusion. Then they will try to divert. Look at these nusus that has the attributes of Allah. They say, no, it doesn't mean that. It means this. So that they will get too much reward and they will be rewarded for this test that they are going through. Yeah. Right? Since they have to work hard and look in the books of the language and find a different meaning so they can, explain it away. وَهَؤُلَاءِ هُمْ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ اضْطِرَابًا وَتَنَاقُضًا. Those people, they are the most of the people in terms of اضطراب, shakiness, وَتَنَاقُضًا, contradiction. Right? اضطراب, shaky. One day they say this, the other day they say that. وتناقضا, contradiction. They contradict themselves. لأنهم ليس لهم قدم ثابت فيما يمكن تأويله وما لا يمكن. Because they do not have a firm foot. قدم ثابت. Principle. One principle. They don't have that. Regarding what can be interpreted and what cannot be. ولا في تعيين المعنى المراد, Also, they do not have a firm foot. قدم ثابت. يعني a firm foot, a firm principle. في تعيين المعنى, in specifying the meaning that is intended. So they say it could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean that. So the hand of Allah could mean the favor, it could mean the power, it could mean this, it could mean that. So they do not have a principle regarding what can be interpreted and what cannot be, because they contradict themselves. So they say the hand has to be interpreted. We cannot believe that Allah has a hand. Okay, do you believe that Allah has a that? Oh yes, we believe in Allah. So right, if you say that, why you don't believe in Allah having a hand? Because then he will be like the people. Well, he has a that, then he will be like the other dhawat, then like the other things that exist. No, they're so they have shakiness and contradiction and the likes in the other. They will affirm one thing, they will not affirm the other one. ثم إن غالب ما يزعمونه من المعاني. Then most of what they claim of the meanings يعلم من حال المتكلم وسياق كلامه أنه لم يرده. It is known from the condition of the speaker and the context of his speech أنه لم يرده في ذلك الخطاب المعين الذي أولوه, that he did not intend it in that specific address, يعني that specific speech الذي أولوه, which they interpreted. Like the example we mentioned a few times, if you say that the hand could mean a favor, right, in the language, but then in the context of ما منعك أن تسجد لما خلقت بيدي, what Allah said to Iblis, what prevented you from prostrating to the one whom I created with both my hands? In this specific context, what? Both my favors, both my powers, and you created me with your power too. So it's what is meant by the context here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to Iblis, how come you do not prostrate to the one whom I created with both my hands? He's a special creation that I created with my hands. It's not like anybody else. If it was the power, Iblis will say, and you created me with your power and ability. So me too, I was created. Why should I? So the hujjah, then the proof will be on the side of Iblis. So the context cannot help you, even if you say the hand could mean the favor, but it cannot be in this context. In this specific context, it cannot mean that. Even Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. They say the ever merciful, he controlled and overpowered the throne. Well, before he controlled it, it was under whose control and under whose authority? And in this specific context, it cannot mean that too. وهؤلاء كانوا يتظاهرون بنصر السنة. Those, they used to pretend. يتظاهرون, pretend. بنصر السنة, by supporting, they pretend to support the sunnah. ويتسترون بالتنزيه, and they cover and conceal themselves. Sitr, sitar, tasattara. Tasattara is to cover, to disguise oneself. Tasattara, to cover oneself, to conceal. يتسترون with what? They cover themselves with the cover of at-tanzih. Oh, we only want to hold Allah to be far removed from any deficiency. That's why we deny He is on the throne. We deny He comes down. We deny all those attributes that He said about Himself, because we have to hold him to be far removed from any deficiency. يتسترون. They disguise and they cover themselves. They take a covering, they hide behind تنزيه, holding Allah to be far removed from any deficiencies. ولكن الله هتك أستارهم. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He هتك, He destroyed their veils, their covers. Astar. Sitr is a cover, a curtain. Sitar is a curtain. So Allah destroyed their covers. برد شبهاتهم, by rejecting, by refuting their misconceptions. وَدَحْضِ حُجَجِهِمْ, right? And bringing down their proofs and evidence, right? And making their proofs and evidence be invalid, invalidating their proofs. فَلَقَدْ تَصَدَّى شيخ الإسلام وغيره. For Shaykh al-Islam here, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he surely tasadda, he faced them, confronted them. وغيره, and other than him, للرد عليهم, to refute them, أكثر من غيرهم, more than the others. So Shaykh al-Islam and other than Shaykh al-Islam, they faced them and confronted them to refute them more than the others. لأن الاغترار بهم أكثر من الاغترار بغيرهم. Because being deceived by them is actually far much more أكثر than being deceived by the others. Why? لما يتظاهرون به من نصر السنة. Because of what they pretend, they come up and show up, يتظاهر, of supporting the Sunnah. So, saying pretending here, that's how they look like. Could they be sincere? Could be that they believe they are sincere, that they are really holding Allah trying to hold Allah to be far removed. Not necessarily, but this is, in reality, that's what it is. They are pretending. They're not real. They are pretending to support the Sunnah when they are not supporting the Sunnah. So next is a section in the same chapter. مذهب أهل التأويل في نصوص المعاد. So I don't want to stay longer than this, but this section is connected and related. And مذهب أهل التأويل في نصوص المعاد. So he spoke about the people of Takhyil regarding Allah and regarding the last day. He spoke about the people of Ta'wil regarding the attributes of Allah. Now he is speaking about مذهب أهل التأويل في نصوص المعاد. The people of Ta'wil, interpretation, false interpretation. What is their position in the texts regarding al-Ma'ad? Al-Ma'ad is the next life, returning to Allah Azza wa Jal. الإيمان بها على حقيقتها من غير تأويل. To believe in them according to their real meanings, حقيقتها من غير تأويل, without interpretation. ولما كان مذهبهم في نصوص الصفات. So the people of Ta'wil, they believe in the Akhirah as is mentioned, without false interpretation. They have some things, but not as wild as they do with the attributes of Allah. ولما كان مذهبهم في نصوص الصفات, and since their position regarding the texts of the attributes صرفها كان مذهبهم صرفها عن حقائقها to divert those texts from their real meanings إلى معان مجازية to metaphorical meanings تخالف ظاهرها that oppose their apparent meanings. Because of this استطال عليهم أهل التخييل فألزموهم القول بتأويل نصوص المعاد كما فعلوا في نصوص الصفات. So he says here that since their position regarding the akhirah, they believe in them, but their position regarding the attributes of Allah, they say no, they don't give them the real meaning. They say it's metaphorical. Since that is the case, أهل التخيل استطالوا عليهم. طال يطول to be long. استطال to be prolonged. But here it means استطال على فلان is to يعني show that he is better than him and to argue and beat them in argument. How did they do that? كيف استطالوا عليهم? They said فألزموهم القول بتأويل نصوص المعاد كما فعلوا في نصوص الصفات. They said it's binding upon you to interpret the texts about the akhirah, ma'ad, like you did in the texts of the attributes. And why you say this is metaphorical, but then the akhirah you say no, this is real. The attributes of Allah, metaphor, allegory, but the akhirah is real. Jannah is real and fire is real, right? Why you're doing that? That's how they استطالوا عليهم. What is the difference? Why are you doing this to these attributes, but then you're not doing that to the akhirah? What will happen to the akhirah? فقال أهل التأويل لهم, the people of ta'wil, they said to them, نحن نعلم بالاضطرار أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم جاء بإثبات المعاد وقد علمنا فساد الشبهة المانعة منه فلزم القول بثبوته. The people of ta'wil, they said, we know by necessity أن الرسول, that the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, he has come with affirming the ma'ad, the next life. وقد علمنا, and we surely knew the corruption of the misconception that prevents us from it, from believing in it. فلزم القول بثبوته. So we must opine, we must be of the position that it is affirmed. So we know for sure Rasulullah ﷺ, he came telling us about the next life. And we know that this misconception that you are presenting, this is a false misconception. Does not prevent us from believing that there is a next life. This, that this is imaginary and the speech of the people of takhil, imagination. So then, لزم القول بثبوته. We have no choice but to say that it is affirmed. The akhirah is real. There is a real Jannah in which people will enjoy, and there is a real fire that the people will be punished in it. Unlike the people of Takhil, they would say, some of them really insane stuff. You are in the fire and you are enjoying the. It's not like a real punishment and crazy stuff. So the Sheikh says, وهذا جواب صحيح وحجة قاطعة. This is a correct response and a crystal clear proof, bona fide, تتضمن الدفاع عنهم في عدم تأويلهم نصوص المعاد. Includes defending them in them not interpreting, not explaining away the texts of the next life. وإلزام أهل التخيل تتضمن الدفاع عنهم في عدم تأويلهم نصوص المعاد. وإلزام أهل التخيل, making it binding, and it includes also making it binding on the people of imagination, أن يقولوا بإثبات المعاد, that they must opine, they must be of the position that معاد, next life, is affirmed. وإجراء نصوصه على حقائقها, and to have the texts that came regarding the hereafter, you must apply them إجراء according to their realities. You have to understand them, you have to believe in them according to their realities. لأنه إذا قام الدليل وانتفى المانع وجب ثبوت المدلول. Because if the proof is established, there is a proof right there. وانتفى المانع, there is nothing preventing you from following it. وجب ثبوت المدلول, it is a must to affirm the indicated meaning from the text. You have a proof, there is nothing stopping you from believing in that proof. No, what is being presented is actually a shubha, misconception, a doubt. Is not. So we must affirm the meaning of the text. وقد احتج أهل السنة على أهل التأويل بهذه الحجة نفسها. أهل السنة, they used as a proof and evidence against the people of false interpretation with this very same evidence. ليقولوا بثبوت الصفات, to have the position to opine that the attributes are affirmed. وإجراء نصوصها على حقيقتها, and to have the texts that came with the attributes of Allah, having them applied, having them understood according to their real meanings. فقالوا لأهل التأويل, so they said to the people of interpretation, نحن نعلم بالاضطرار أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم جاء بإثبات الصفات لله. We know by necessity that the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم came with affirmation, with affirming the attributes for Allah. وقد علمنا فساد الشبهة المانعة منه, and we surely knew the corruption of the misconception that prevents us from believing in those attributes. فلزم القول بثبوتها. So having the position that the attributes are affirmed, لزم, as a must, became binding. So it is binding upon us to believe, to be upon the position that they are affirmed. وهذا إلزام صحيح وحجة قائمة. This is إلزام, when you make something binding on another one. That is صحيح. That is correct. وحجة قائمة, and an established proof. لا محيد لأهل التأويل عنها. The people of ta'wil, they cannot drift away, they cannot run away from it. It's a binding, like a proof that is bona fide and extra, crystal clear. فإن من منع صرف الكلام عن حقيقته في نصوص المعاد يلزمه أن يمنعه في نصوص الصفات. For the one who diverted the speech from its real meaning in terms of the texts of the next life, it is binding upon him to prevent it, to prevent diverting away the meaning regarding the texts of the attributes. So if you're saying we must believe in the ma'ad, the akhirah, because the text that came, there is nothing, we have to take them, nothing stopping us. This shubuhat, those misconceptions, they cannot prevent us from believing in the akhirah. So then in the same way, they must say, أن يمنعه. If you say we cannot explain away, falsely interpret the texts of the akhirah, the same, it is binding upon you to say we cannot explain away the texts, the meanings of the text. We cannot falsely interpret the meanings of the text of the attributes التي هي أعظم وأكثر إثباتا في الكتب الإلهية من إثبات المعاد. Those texts about the attributes of Allah, they are greater and more, much more, أكثر, more abundant. The texts of the attributes of Allah are greater and more in number, أكثر إثباتا, more affirmed in the godly books في الكتب الإلهية, the divine books, من إثبات المعاد. They are more than affirming the next life. You have to affirm Allah first so that you affirm there is a return to Him. That's why the texts about Allah are much more than the texts about the Akhirah. وإن لم يفعل إن لم يفعل, if he doesn't do that, يعني, no, I will prevent the false interpretation in the texts of Ma'ad, text of Akhirah only. But I will not prohibit the false interpretation in the texts of the attributes. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? إن لم يفعل, if you don't do that, يعني فقد تبين تناقضه وفساد عقله. Then his contradiction has become clear and the corruption of his intellect has become clear. Because if you cannot interpret the texts of the next life, then you should be far much more not interpreting the texts of attributes of Allah. Those attributes of Allah, they are far much more than the texts of the Akhirah. So if you treat them differently, then you are not balanced. You're not upright. You're contradicting yourselves. You're contradicting yourself. Why you're doing this and not doing that? So this is how استطال أهل التخيل على أهل التأويل. So they tell them, the people of Ta'wil, they tell the people of Takhyil, you are kuffar. And they judge them to be kuffar, which is right. Those, why are we kuffar? Why are they say because you are denying the Akhirah. And so, well, there are this text. Okay, but the attributes of Allah and the texts, they are far much more. And you are doing ta'wil to them. So how come we become kuffar and you are still okay? This is kayfa statala. This is how they beat them. And they their proof against them was like stronger. Because you're contradicting yourself. And Ahlul Sunnah, they use the same as they did the people of Ta'wil to the people of Takhyil. Ahlul Sunnah, they told them the same way. The texts in the Quran about the attributes of Allah are there and affirmed. And there is nothing preventing us from understanding them according to their apparent meaning. And you claiming, oh, this is tashbih, and you're making Allah look like the humans, that's false. We don't. That's a misconception. And therefore, we treat all the same. So we'll stop here today. Next one is Ahlul Tajheel. right? تجهيل or تفويض, right? And the word تفويض came before, but he will elaborate more on that. أهل التجهيل. So inshallah we will stop here, and next week, Sunday next week inshallah, Sunday morning we will continue inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. And جزاكم الله خيرا, and I hope the explanation was and the translation was understood, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit all of us from what we heard. جزاكم الله خيرا. MashaAllah, we have a number of brothers attending, MashaAllah. BM, Abu Umar, and Mahbub, and Ibn Fadl. جزاكم الله خيرا وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our intentions sincere, and to make our actions righteous. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.